another Everest story. Jim Morrison skiing Everest, which kind of us in the know always knew. We kind of knew that he's been on Everest with Jimmy Chin, but Jim Morrison just skied the north face, the Hornbein Couloir, the north face of Everest from the summit all the way down to the Rongbuk Glacier, a 9,000-foot line. It was like the last major ski descent that hasn't been done off of Everest. It was the line that infamously Marcus Ifaridi tried and disappeared on. So finally he did it. Documented by Jimmy Chin, National Geographic Films, accompanied by a huge team of Sherpa and porters and cinematographers. It sounded like the Hornbein Couloir in this route had only been climbed by a handful of people, and they almost like tripled the amount of people that had ever climbed this route in this one trip. And then they all descended via climbing and via the fixed ropes that they had put up. And then Jim solo skied down the line.
I know we've been doing this a little bit, but we have had a second Everest descent, ascent, descent. And we talked a little bit about this, but I'm just curious if you have any, like with a bit more time now, and that given since we last spoke, Jim has had his descent of Everest. Do you want to talk about these two? What do you think is interesting in terms of a comparison contrast?
So two things I'll say about it. Like, first, I'm not the best judge of it because I haven't been above 20,000 feet. And I think when you go to altitude and when you go to 28,000 feet, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different medium. There's so much different experiences and challenges there. Like being at altitude in general, I can't say one or the other. I've heard when I've read books about Everest, I've read things where it's saying like the true challenge is the oxygen. So to say like, you could say like what Andrzej did without oxygen is way harder. But then vice versa, it sounds like what Jim did in that line is beyond super gnarly, and it's been coveted and tried to ski and no one's climbed it. And so who cares, really? Yeah. The one thing I got to laugh at, and Jim has nothing to do with this. Jimmy has nothing to do with this. The contrast between how these projects were marketed was so hilarious. It was so American, the way that the Jim's project was marketed post fact. Everything that Nat Geo was putting out was the greatest ski descent ever. The greatest ski descent ever. It was just over and over, the greatest ski descent ever. And like Andrzej did his, and they were just kind of like talking about it. He skied from the summit of Everest without oxygen. Never saying like, this is the greatest ski descent ever. And I just was like, kind of like, oh, come on, guys. Like, that's an objective statement. Like, you guys, how can we judge that? Like, what Andrzej did last month, you could say is the greatest ski descent ever. What he did on K2, you could say that. I don't know what Seth Morrison did in Norway, like 20 years ago, and like backflipped and stomped a 100-footer, you could say. Like, it's a very objective thing. So I just kind of laughed at it as just being like, that was like, felt like such an American marketing thing to just keep labeling it like the greatest ski descent ever. And again, Jim is not the one claiming that. Jimmy is not. I guarantee if you asked Jim himself, he wouldn't be like, yes, this was the greatest ski descent ever. Like we as skiers know that. It's just the marketing and trying to pump out a movie that they're trying to do this and, put it on Good Morning America and have a title that comes out with it. So that was kind of funny to me.
It is wild that these two achievements happened so damn close to each other. Yeah. That's crazy because, I do think there is something about, I think you just said really well. Cool. Which would you rather, ski a super gnar sketch line that literally no one has ever done, or get up and down Everest, no oxygen? And I don't know for the reasons you said. Like that's both sound. Well, I'm out in both scenarios, but for anyone to even try to objectively wrap your head around, one, you have to know how does your body function without supplemental oxygen at those kinds of heights. And then, what's even the right analogy? I don't know that I've heard this. Like, would it be something like, all right, Cody, you're going to go ski a complete no-fall zone line, or you ski a bit of an easier line, but you have to drink, is it 6 beers first? 10 beers? 12 beers? Like, is that an analogy that actually kind of works to being oxygen deficient?
I don't know.
We need to find this out.
What would be that? What would be that? Like,
I need to check
like being oxygen deficient is like, you literally just can't move, and you freeze to death because you're so cold, and you get frostbite because you can't transport oxygen to your outer limbs, and you just, you lose the will to move anymore because you're so tired. And, for me, like, I personally know, like, I don't think I physically could get to the summit of Everest without oxygen. Like, that to me seems less likely for myself than doing the line that Jim did with oxygen.
Yeah.
But to say that, I'm like, I don't know. I've never been to Everest. So to say that is complete BS either way. So I'm like, well, it sounds like what Andrzej's did was harder. But I'm like, who cares? They're both rad.